Hi, everybody. My name is Victoria Berry, and I'm with the Family Focus Resource Center. And today we have a presentation for you called Helping Your Child Sleep Better. And this presentation is going to be made by our friends Selena Aguilar and Aminta Putaraxa. Thank you for helping. With an agency called Developing Mindful Lives and the DOT Parent, or is it DOT Parent?
The DOT.
The DOT. Okay. So they've done some presentations for us in the past, and they've been really great. So we're very happy that you're back presenting this information about how to help your child sleep better. And I should tell everyone up front, this presentation is geared to younger children, but as we go through it, we'll try to share some tips that may help older children as well. Many of the tips probably apply to older children as well. So now I'd like to hand it off to Selena. Thanks, Selena.
Thank you, Victoria. Well, we are glad to be back. We definitely, Aminta and myself, we enjoy collaborating with the Family Focus Resource Center, and we know that this was a topic that it was requested. So hopefully today you will leave with some meaningful information about understanding somehow the challenges that children face and how we can support them, and not only children, but parents as well. Before we do that, I just want to tell you a little bit about Developing Mindful Lives and the Parent program. We are an early intervention program, but we also work with older children. We do a personal and family coaching. So we take pride of being present for the community to support in many ways. So you are welcome to visit our website at the Parent or our developingmindful.co and contact me or Aminta. We'll be happy to give you further information. Well, let's get started with sleep challenges, right? And I think Victoria was asking if we want to have questions before or after. I want you to feel free to put it in the chat, and Victoria will let us know about the question. And if we need to pause to really answer or respond to that, we'll be happy to do as well. And we will leave some time at the end as well to cover any of your questions. But here we are, right? Thinking about these angels. I mean, I love children, how they look when they're sleeping, and we want them to say, stay like that, right? But yet, many of them faces challenges. I have to say that I have one in my own, that he was really challenging. I remember even when he was attending preschool and even the toddler class, the teachers were always come to me and say, oh, it's a challenge and he doesn't want to go to sleep at all, nap time. And here you are as a parent feeling frustrated or lonely, thinking you are the only parent having issues with sleep challenges. And then you experience all kind of feelings, right? How are others are going to be looking at me? This is embarrassing. This is frustrating. It is my fault. What I'm doing wrong. And we all go to all of these, I will say, beliefs or ideas. And it's our internal dialogue who is taking over that challenge. But let me tell you that sleep challenges is becoming more common. And I want to add that, unfortunately, now that we also face COVID-19, added a little bit into this challenge because family dynamics also changed a lot in the routines, the environment, in the interactions. So hopefully today we're going to give you that sense of how everything is connected with what we call the emotional, physical, and the biological aspect of children. But before we go to that, I want Aminta to share the most common fears that we all face when we do that. In fact, hold on, let me see, because since I am not looking at the PowerPoint the way that I thought, before going into the fears, I just want to brainstorm about the common cultural beliefs. And I'm sure many of you will say, Dito, that's my family, or that's me, right? Because many families will, face the issue of sleeping with mom and dad, right? The child is sleeping with mom and dad, and you might even have the teacher, sometimes the child development specialist, sometimes the pediatrician telling you, no, it's not good. You need to have your child sleeping separately in a different room. We want to support independence and autonomy. And we deal with all of these beliefs, but I wanted to sleep with me, especially if it's the first one, or the belief of the child needs to sleep alone. No way, no chances that the child is going to come into the mommy's and daddy's room. Or, hey, be silent. Nobody's sleeping. Shh. And everybody goes, no, don't make any noise, right? We get really stressed that if somebody will be interrupting the napping time or nighttime, and we want to create that. Or some families may say, no, I want my child to be able to sleep with noisy environments because life is life. The blender, the TV, the cars in the background, and we don't want my child to be just so codependent of the silent. But here we go again, cultural beliefs. How many of you come from those families that the baby needs to be wrapped in a blanket, right? Not even moving, I mean, so cozy. In some cultures, even not allowed to move, like a little taco, right, or something, and wrapping up in a way that the child is regulating for some cultural beliefs, or is resting calmly. And some other people might think, no, that's not the right thing to do because you're not allowing the child to freely move. So here we go, exploring all of this. The other common belief is let them cry, they will be fine. And many studies are showing now that ignoring the child doesn't take us to any good results. Ignoring the children gives the sense of I'm not good enough, I'm not important enough. And that could be really risky when we're thinking about early childhood trauma. That in the past, we used to think that early childhood trauma should be like something super dramatic, like domestic violence, rape, I mean, really something big. But now we know that when it's related to trauma, is related to the adverse, childhood experiences, the accumulation of adversities. So that changes the whole story, right? Because little things or big things like that, in their frequency and consistency, can really impact the social emotional of the child and precisely interrupts the way that the child is sleeping, the way that the child is interacting with others, not to mention other domains, cognitive, language, physical aspects. So everything is connected. So we definitely would like to talk about the importance of meaningful interactions, of not ignoring children's signs and messages. And crying is a message, is a need. And finally, talking about all the different positions. How many of you as parents or the grandmother or the grandfather will say, no, they need to sleep on the right side. They need to sleep on the left side. They need to sleep on their tummies. No, grandma will come, the mother-in-law will say, they need to be sleeping on their back. And we don't want them to be asphyxiated or anything. I mean, so many beliefs. So what is the right thing to do? And in fact, we also deal with doctors' beliefs versus family beliefs. Grandma, the mother-in-law, the uncle, the auntie, the neighbor, the person who knows the expert, and the pediatrician sometimes might be recommending something really simple, but here we are, facing all these fears sometimes. So I will let Aminta share about these fears, common fears.
So some of the common challenges and the common fears that a lot of parents that we have come across, they have fears of sleeping alone, fears of like the dark, fears of, and some of these things, it's like, we don't know, right? We, as parents, we have to be detectives to find out, because you might think it's something and because they can't talk or they don't have the words, or even older children, they might have the words, but they don't know how to say it. You have to be a detective to figure it out. So we have fears, we have attachment. Sometimes, children might feel like if you leave, you're not going to come back. The fear of the darkness, the child wants to keep playing, like if they're in the middle of something and then all of a sudden you stop them and you say, okay, it's bedtime, that throws their whole routine off and they still want to stay awake. Some children are really restless. They want to sleep, but they can't, and they can't figure out why. And as parents, it's frustrating to figure out because we just want to help them go to sleep as parents. And sometimes you just don't know what to do to help them. Sometimes they want to stay connected and see others awake. Like if you have a gathering going on, a dinner going on, and then you cut it short and, oh no, it's your bedtime because you're on a schedule and everybody is still in the living room and still talking and they still want to stay. And then you're sending them to bed. That, disrupts their routine. And having no routine will also disrupt their bedtime. Sometimes it's insomnia. They might have some night terrors. They might have nightmares, anxiety, and also biological needs of being hungry or thirsty. And so as parents, we have to look at all of these things and kind of like check it off, like, okay, well, they already ate. They already had drink. Okay, where's it? Maybe there was a change in something that happened at home, something that happened at school, something that happened at the daycare that might have caused some anxiety. It might have happened at nap time when they're at school, or anything. Any of those things can disrupt all of the bedtime kind of like routine and sleep patterns.
Thank you, Minta. And here we are really reflecting. Here are some of them, right? Because I'm sure if you have another one, please share it. Victoria will let us know. That might not be in this list and you may want to share it. We want to kind of share what is recommended by CDS, right? The Center for Disease. And here you go. Look at this, like infants from the 12 to 16 hours, including nap time. Toddlers, 11 to 14 hours, also including nap time. Children, 3 to 5 years old, 10 to 13 hours. And children 6 to 12, from 9 to 12 hours. Teens, from 13 to 18 years old, from 8 to 10 hours. And adults, 7 to 9 hours. And who will say, guilty of not sleeping enough, right? Sometimes not only children, right, but even us who are taking care of children, we're not sleeping enough. And let me tell you about this. I'm sure it's nothing new, but I think it is important to remember this. If we as the parents or caregivers are tired, we're going to transfer that to them. Even though we're not trying to complain about how tired we are, we don't want to tell them. Our unconscious mind speaks louder to the children. Especially young children, they have the ability more than adults because they have not been contaminated brain development, how they are picking up on the unconscious messages. Have you ever experienced being with somebody and you say, she's saying that or he's saying that, but in reality, I feel the opposite. And it's because your unconscious mind was activated and in tune with the reality. And I want to make you aware about this, especially children are very accurate about picking up on messages. The whole sensory aspect is very present to them. So I want to make you aware that if we want to have children that are calm and rested, we need to really role model for them the same thing. We need to take care of ourselves. So we are sending a message of I am rested too. Because it doesn't take, it's not a rocket science to know who is tired sometimes, right? We can hide it a little bit, but in the end, we are going to be showing some of that evidence and children are really good about picking up on that. So what then impacts these sleeping patterns? So go ahead, Aminta, you can touch briefly on this and then.
So we have the emotional, the biological, the physical, and the environment. So when we talk about just piggybacking off of what Selena was saying, so children pick up on cues just as much as you can pick up on like when they're hungry, when they need to sleep, when they're tired. You can hear their cries, you can hear it in their voice. Children pick that up too. So if you have that same so if you're upset and you're tired too, and you're trying to put them to sleep, but it's more like I'm just going to put you to sleep because you're tired, as opposed to really getting getting down and just knowing what it is that they need, they're going to pick up on that, and that's going to create more stress for the both of you. So that might look like they're crying even more. And so what could take 20 minutes to put them to sleep now can take an hour, can take 2 hours. You know, we've come across parents who sometimes, oh, I can't get my child to sleep for 2 to 3 hours. Well, if you're trying for 2 to 3 hours at this point in time, maybe they're not tired. So maybe they need a break from you trying to put them to sleep for 2 to 3 hours, because it really doesn't help the situation for anyone, right? It doesn't help the parent, it doesn't help the child, and it just causes more and more stress. And so by the time they actually go to sleep, and a parent comes out like, yes, it took me 3 hours to put them to sleep. It's like, okay, you're exhausted. They might wake up an hour later again, because they're still, it's not restful. It's not a restful thing. Let's see. And then biological, you know, again, to make sure that they have, that they're eating before they go to bed, but they're not eating right before they go to bed, because food has to digest. You know, sometimes if they eat too much, they might be too full, and you're trying to put them to bed because routines right after work, we're going, okay, let's go. It's time to eat. It's time to sleep. It's time to take a bath. It's time to, you know, we're rushing and rushing and rushing, and we miss the cue of let them just relax, and let's relax together, and then we can go into the routine of bedtime. And then physical, Selena, physical and environment.
Right. So physical, when you think about it, it's kind of what similar what Aminta was saying. You need to know the when and the how, because if you provide a lot of physical activity before going to bed, it's called the muscular tone, and it's going to be too high. So I want to kind of touch bases in two aspects of the physical, right? In sense of the sensory experience, and also is related to a little bit with the biological aspect. But here it is, right? We need to be mindful about what is happening right before to go to bed. Sometimes it could be even going to, I don't know, name it, especially now with the holidays, going to Target, going to Costco, going to any places that they are loaded with lights and sounds. And you say it's not gonna take me too long, it's gonna be only a short time. Well, for you, but for the nerve system of the child, it can take a longer time to slow down the experience. So by the time that you come home and you says, okay, we just came home and it's 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. and you think that your child is gonna go to bed after taking a warm shower, is not going to work like that, because the physical experience that took place in terms of the sensory experience is going to change the information given to the brain, and of course to the whole way that the children are regulating. So we need to be really careful about when and how we're going to be experiencing things before bed. So it's nothing new, right? But I think it is important to remind ourselves about saying that is true. You know, it's nothing new. We know that overwhelming a child can completely change the mood of the child. And we're going to be connecting in a moment with what is called temperament tendencies. And some of you might be aware of these if you are in the field of child development, or if you are a parent, and this is a new term for some of you. Temperament tendencies has to do with the way that we experience, the way that we connect with others, the way that we explore our emotions, the way that we respond to experiences, per se, in a way. And they call them now tendencies, which I think it is very meaningful to look at from that perspective, because before it was temperament overall. So we might say, oh, Aminta has a very strong temperament. Victoria is low to warm. She's a really shy child. And Selena is the fearful and or fight, you know, she's always in a fight mode. But no longer we label children that way. Right now, the new studies are showing that the right way to approach it is by looking at the tendencies, temperament tendencies. And I value how this is connected with the sleep pattern, because imagine, even ourselves, what happened when you have a really rough night for whatever reason, because you were really worried about a personal matter, financially, spiritually, personally, or you were not being able to sleep because you were not feeling good biological wise, you had a ear infection, you were with COVID, you were with the flu, with the stomach flu, you name it, but you were not able to sleep well. So look at how that is connected then in the morning with your temperament. Now, that experience shouldn't define you for the rest of the week or the rest of your life to say, oh, she became this way. No, that's what is called tendencies, because the adversity that had happened at that moment impacted the way that I'm experiencing that. So I want to connect it with when we have children that are being exposed around sleeping, around the time that they're going to sleep, to some level of adversity, is going to, of course, definitely make an impact to the way that they're going to be resting or not. So of course, in the morning, if they're not resting, we're going to deal with challenging behaviors as well. But the most important thing is to understand that how can then I identify those tendencies and support them? So we're going to be talking in a moment about that. And then the environment is connected exactly with what we are already covering a little bit. Think about the environment, the home environment. And I want you to think about light, temperature, sounds, the way that it smells, the way that it feels. Everything counts for children. And the little things can trigger some children. And the reason why is because especially 0 to 5 is a very vulnerable time for the sensory development. So for instance, many of you may, let's say, giving an example right now, be a little bit tired and you're saying, oh, I'm listening here to Amit and Selena and I'm falling asleep, you know, because I am driving or because I need to go home. I need my coffee, my afternoon coffee. That's a way to regulate, right? And we take it as a habit and we're not stopping to think, I am taking that coffee afternoon, or the afternoon coffee to regulate myself. So imagine children then experiencing all this adversity and not having ways to regulate because they depend on you. And here we are as parents coming up with all of those beliefs. And even if we have auntie at the moment, or the cousin or the husband, or everybody, no, do this, do that, give him a tea, give him lettuce with onions, give him try this, put him in this position, put him, again, we go over all of these things because we have the anxiety, as Aminta was mentioning, that this child needs to go to sleep, I need to rest, and it's stressing me, right? But at the same time, we're not going to have any positive result if we're not taking care of the main core of the problem. And the core of the problem is not about your approach, it's about the environment. And how are you setting up the child to be successful or to fail? And Aminta and I were just talking because no matter if it's a sleep pattern, it could be a challenging behavior, it could be implementing any strategy. What requires is the level of dedication and commitment to make things happen. Because if we all follow recommendations, 1, 2, 3 steps, I can almost tell you, you will be okay. But the reality is that we go to classes, we listen to the pediatrician, and we don't follow those steps. So I will say that the big challenge is sometimes not the children, but are the caregivers not setting up the right environment or putting the right strategies into place to be successful. So that's why we came up with these essential elements. And we're not saying that they're all right. There are some of these, but we think that are the most meaningful or important elements that we need to take into account right away. So think about how you can transform the environment, like I say, from the sensory aspect, the type of light, the type of sound, as you know, putting some calm music. And I am so happy to see so many resources right now. You're gonna laugh because I have a dog And I was recommended to give to put my dog with this music that is called, if you go to YouTube, calming music for dogs. And I was telling a friend, I say, oh my God, this dog music, it works so well for myself, not only for the dogs. So, and I know I don't want to make any comparison here that we are dogs. Please, I want to make sure that I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is music itself play a big role in the way that we are going to be impacting each one of our organs. And sometimes we don't connect that, right, in terms of the biological aspect to say how this music is, impacting the rhythm of my heart, my breathing, the way that my stomach is reacting, the way that my muscles are feeling it. And that's why the biological aspect, the emotional and the physical and the environment are all connected. Because if I am not regulated with my emotions, most likely I will be reacting to the environment, no matter how kind and welcoming the environment it is. And also, if I don't feel well biological wise, that is nothing to do with the environment, but something that is my body not feeling well, the equation is not going to work neither, right? And I'm reading here something. It says, I like to use Calm app to play relaxing music or play sleep story. Yes, definitely, right? So, and we have so many apps right now. And I'm glad that we are right now taking the time to say how this is really impacting the sleep patterns and the challenges. And not only young children, it's for all ages, right? And to be more aware about saying how everything is interconnected. So with that in mind, we're gonna go to our next slide and talk more about, give me 1 second here. What is the evidence that we need? And it's kind of on the same page that I was telling you about the environment, but we're now gonna go to the details. So I'm if you wanna go with the family dynamic and everything.
Yes, so the family dynamic, we're always in a rush to do things. Everything that we do is kind of like we don't really take the time out to focus on what we're doing because we're always in a rush. Right? We always need to make dinner. We need to get the kids in bed. We need to get them to do homework. We need them to sleep. We need them to take a bath, all of the things. And if parents, grandparents, I mean, you're not all on the same page, it will affect the sleep pattern for the child as well. Because if you're in a home where the parents are consistently fighting, or arguing, I'm say fighting, but arguing, even the smallest argument before bedtime, and the child is standing right there, they're going to pick up on that. So they're going to sleep with those stressors. And sometimes parents don't realize that we just kind of fed them all of that stress that they're going to go to sleep with now. And sometimes that could cause them to be restless. It's like we don't really think about it because we're in our own moment and we need to get things done. And why aren't you helping me? And Daddy, why aren't you helping me? And Mom, well, you keep asking for too much. And we have to make sure that we provide a relaxing and calm environment. And even if that does happen, then how are you going to kind of now navigate it so that it is calm, because it already happened, right? So if you guys already, if parents already had that argument, you can't take it back. But now the consequence is the child may not be able to sleep. So now how are we going to be able to help them through that? The sensory experience, Selena touched on that, the auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. Again, I know Selena did touch on the physical part. I always like to use the example of when parents or adults, when they go to the gym, it's like you go to the gym at 8 o'clock at night. When you come home, I don't know if it happens to anyone else, but you're still amped up. You're still like, oh, I still have a lot of energy. I can do this, I can do that. And same thing with the child. If you give them all of these activities to do, you take them out at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, like what Selena is saying, when you get home, it's too much of a high expectation to think that you're trying to tire them out. It may happen, it may not happen. Some kids are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna come home and I'm gonna go to sleep. And then there are other kids are like the opposite, and they get even more riled up, and it's harder to help them calm down. And then your sensory experience is not your child's experience. So what you're feeling at the moment is not always what your child is going to be feeling. I think that that is hard sometimes for parents to understand. For example, like if your child runs hot and you run cold and you need to sleep with a blanket and your child hates sleeping with a blanket and they keep picking it off and you're like, no, you need to put a blanket on, you're gonna get sick, then those are two different experiences, and we have to be mindful of that because they're telling you something. And sometimes, we overlook that. Yeah. Okay, Selena,
Thank you,
do you have
Amita.
anything to add to
And,
that?
yes, I
Mhm.
would like to just extend a little bit on this aspect of the sensory experience. And I don't know how many parents we have today, but the sensory experience has to do with everything that we experience through our senses, right? Through, what are we seeing? What are we hearing? What are we smelling? What are we tasting? What are we touching? How does it feel? And in addition to that, it's something that I'm not trying to bring here fancy terms, but it's something called the vestibular and then the proprioceptive system that has to do with, and the integration as well. And it has to do with how children experience the information given into their joints or the way that they balance. So imagine if children are being exposed to something that is really challenging in terms of balancing their bodies, despite the fact that you may provide, like as I was mentioning, a very calm environment, his nerve system is not going to be able to put together that experience. Some of you, in fact, might know that some children require occupational therapy. And this is the therapy that is related to children precisely that they are sometimes dealing with very, very, very challenging sleep patterns. And that you may find that you already tried everything, and now is the time to refer this not only to the pediatrician, but maybe again to an occupational therapist who can look deeper on how they can support regulation. Because children usually, we all have as human beings a way to regulate ourselves. But there's a point with the nerve system needs someone to do it. And this is the professional is called occupational therapists who come to support the whole aspect of regulation. And I cannot tell you enough, even the latest studies provided by the NAIC, the National Association for Education of Young Children, they're telling us that children do not learn if they are not regulated. Children don't learn also if they don't have a connection with somebody. So then imagine how these aspects also impact the way that they're going to be resting. It is so fascinating to us how everything is connected to all the domains. The way that children rest is going to impact the brain, and the brain is going to be alert or not alert to be in that experience of learning. So that's why it's extremely important that we provide children with the right sensory experiences, especially 0 to 5 years old, because this is going to dictate, this is going to lead the road for the future experiences in regards to their learning, the way that they think, the way that they process information, the language, the way that they talk. Sometimes even children who are not being able to communicate their needs, it is also related to, again, the aspect of regulation. So again, we want to really pay attention to these aspects. Now, another good tip or idea could be, and Aminta mentioned this a little bit, doing a detective work. What does it mean? To really pay attention to the child. We like to call this also being able to observe, to ask questions, what the child is trying to tell me, rather than taking the crying and the tantrum as, oh my God, it's driving me nuts. This child is driving me crazy. To say, what kind of unmet needs my baby or my child, my teen is going through that is trying to give me this message with tears or with this tantrum. And here it is the opportunity to reframe the approach on how are we seeing this tantrum. Imagine how many times we have been in a situation that We want somebody to listen to us. We want to feel heard. We want to be seen by somebody. We want to feel the sense of belonging. We want to know that somebody really cares. So if we transfer these to early childhood experiences, this is completely related to the way that the child is going to be able to calm and have what is called a relaxing nighttime. So when we're thinking about evidence, is really being honest to ourselves and to say, do we have evidence of a relaxing nighttime? And Aminta mentioned, right? Sometimes without being aware of the moment, we go into those places in which we have a little chaos. And again, that is against the whole aspect of being relaxing. But what I want to make a point here is that if you do your detective work and you find out that your child is an auditory child, so what does it mean? That he responds better when you are telling him, singing a song, do you know what time it is? It's time to go to sleep, right? We connect with some auditory direction. Or, okay, in 5 more minutes, we're gonna go to sleep. Anything that is related to articulating a direction is what is called the auditory experiences. Some children, will do better with only listening. Some children will not. They need to see and hear, or they might only need to see. So what is it that we're gonna do with these children? These are the children who need the visual cue. Like for instance, right here at this very moment, how many of you appreciate that I have a slide with the words that I'm using because you are listening, but at the same time, you are seeing what I'm trying to point out here. For some of you, might be even more difficult if I remove the slide and I only talk. And you might say, what did she say? Okay, no, did you hear that? Or because we all have different ways to process the auditory experience. So again, some children might need a visual, even like this little picture over here, a symbol of a child with a, zoom, like sleeping time, right? So what kind of images you may want to have before nighttime, and even creating a board. I'm sure you have seen in YouTube or TikTok, there's so many things available nowadays about how we can create a visual cue for them. Very true, my kids are visual learners. They use a bedtime chart. Thank you, Miriam. And maybe you may want to share a little bit at the end about this, right? And let me tell you something else, Miriam. You might have the visual just with pictures. Now, I recommend don't use, please, your screen because with the thing that I have, if you use the screen or your phones to say, here is a picture to go to sleep, that is not going to help because you are creating codependence on the screen. You really need to print pictures of them sleeping or symbols or pictures of other children, but they need to see that. We also have here visual schedules for the nighttime routine can help. Pajamas, yeah. And we have a slide with this, in fact, exactly.
Yeah.
The symbols that are related to this, right? And we want to make sure that those, the type of, we call it learning styles also, related to the sensory experience, but this is the learning style. And they do better by following the visual. So if we are consistent, the consistency of providing that chart every day. And I want to add something, the kinesthetic children are the ones who needs to touch. So that's why some children might need a Velcro to remove the picture, to put it on and off, or maybe to bring a sticker to say, okay, this is what I'm doing right now, not to give the sticker as a reward. I'm saying to use the sticker just as an object that the child is holding and he puts it on the chart. Or it could be something that he's touching and is related. Like Victoria said, maybe if I have my toothbrush and I see the picture, I'll match it with that, right? So it needs to be, this is the kinesthetic experience. I'm holding something. Another recommendation that we always do is if you don't have the chart at the moment, it really helps to say, hold it, hold your toothbrush, because we're going to be brushing your teeth in the next 5 minutes. Or hold the toothpaste. Why? because that helps the child to connect. Remember, the learning experiences between 0 to 5, it works by associations. So sometimes if you say, in 5 minutes, we're gonna go to bed, the child, if it's more than auditory, he might not process it effectively. But if we say, in 5 more minutes, we're gonna go and brush your teeth, I'm sorry, and then you give the toothpaste and they hold it, or they hold an item that is related to their routine of going to sleep. Could be even a lotion to say, and after the shower, we're gonna, put your lotion. The point here is to create an association, okay? And finally, again, like Aminta was saying, don't forget, your sensory experience is not your child's experiences. You might say, oh, I love this lavender. Let me put it on. And you get excited and your child is like rather than supporting your child, is bringing more awareness. So be careful with those people who really believe in bringing the candles or the sense of things, the mint, because they are really effective. And some of them have the purpose of alerting and awakening you. I had this parent who says, oh, I was listening to this and I heard that lavender is going to be really good. And I thought, and I put it in my whole home, and my child, it worked the opposite, because it was creating a lot of alertness and, oh, mommy, I want to do this and I want to play. So be careful about what kind of things you are bringing to create calmness. What kind of things you are doing to create this relaxing nighttime. Believe it or not, how many of you like candles? I am a candle person, and I can, oh my God, I can stare at the candle. But for some people, guess what? It's alertness. And it brings a lot of activity like, oh, so we cannot assume that what is calming to me might be calming to you. And we want to make you aware about the detective work that you need to put into place to make sure that, hey, we all are on the same page here, yet we are the same family, but everybody is a unique family member with unique needs, and we need to think about individualizing their needs, right? Talking about individualizing needs, I know some of you might be listening or something, but let's just even regulate ourselves a little bit here after listening to some of these. And this can also help your children. I don't know if you're familiar with this technique that is called the flower and the candle, and it's by Dr. Beckley from her course of positive discipline. But the thing is, talking about the sensory experience, imagine you right now as an adult, if you would close your eyes, not those that are driving, of course, but if you close your eyes and if you picture your favorite flower and you give a lot of information to the scent, the way that it smells, if it's a daisy, if it's a rose, and you can even feel the petals, you can smell the freshness, everything, right? And then you imagine a candle. And here we go with the scent. Your favorite scent could be vanilla, could be lavender, I don't know, you name it. But the most important thing is the sensory experience that we're going to give to these items. So if you are there in a position that you can do this, let's try it together. We're going to smell the flower and blow the candle and smell the flower again and blow your candle. And the last time, and blow your candle. Now, with your permission or not permission, you were regulating the nerve system. And no matter from what country we are, we all know and we have heard that when we are really stressed, when we are experiencing anxiety, what is the first time that they tell us? Breathe in, right? Take your time to breathe. Count to 3. But children cannot, if we tell them breathe in, breathe out, count to 3, they might be, they don't get that right away. But if we present children with an item, with a kinesthetic experience, associating an item with that, you will be really surprised how effective this could be. So you can even show them a picture of a flower and a picture of a candle, and let me tell you, that will be enough. And if you want to go further, you may want to have one of those, like I say, flower, real one, or candle, or even from the 99-cent store. And I'm promoting here the 99-cent store of the Dollar Tree. I should ask for commission, I guess. But if you refer to any of these stores in which you can get fake candles, or a fake flower, that will be enough. But this is just an example of the many ways that we can bring self-regulation. And this is another completely course that we can talk about the sensory experience of children and how do they regulate, and bringing all of this awareness to parents, teachers, and how we can help children to regulate. And this is one of the most powerful ones because it has to do with the breathing, that no matter what, if we help children to breathe. So imagine if we are associating that with the candle and the flower, they associate and they can focus better on how they can regulate themselves. And of course, there's many other ways, but we're trying just to point out to some of them. And do we have any questions, Victoria, that I want to pass? I don't know if I'm skipping anything.
No questions. Yeah.
Or
I think
comments.
maybe we can go to some other tips.
I didn't want to skip any of the comments. I know that I got to read it, Miriam, but I know somebody else posted something, so I want to honor if you want to share any of their comments.
Yeah,
Please do so.
someone just said they needed to leave, so.
Okay,
I think we
perfect.
can move forward.
Thank you. Well, let's talk about a little bit of the impacts of interactions. Remember, we're talking about the emotional experience. So let's look into what happened with these emotions and the way that we are interacting with them. Aminta?
Okay, so you want to check your child's emotional account. What is the balance before going to bed, the withdrawals and the deposits? So if your child is like if they are in a state where they are still restless and they're not ready to go to bed, we want to honor that, and we want to try and kind of be a detective again and try and find out. And also, before I go on, I wanted to just let you also know that each child's experience with sleeping is going to be different. So you might be in the same family, your parent, the parents are raising the children the same exact way, each child is the same, but that doesn't mean that those sleep routines that you have are going to match every child. So this is where we're talking about temperament tendencies too. And just for example, I have 3 children. One of them loved to be swaddled, the other one hated to be swaddled, and the other one was just carefree. So, and each time that I tried to do it the correct way, it never worked. I had to find out which way was going to work for each one of them based on what their needs was. And it took a long time. So if you do feel like you want to give up and you have to do it this way, please, sometimes the routine just takes 2 months to try at least to get it going, and don't give up. It will get better.
Yes.
Let me see. So balance and before bed. Celine, I don't know if you want to touch on the withdrawals.
Yes, thank you. So here it is, a funny way to say it, right? Aminta and I were thinking about analogies, and we love analogies. But if you think about your checking account, right? And if you go to the bank and you make the deposit to cover all of your bills. So let's be absurd and let's pretend that you're running out of funds and your cell phone bill or DWP bill is coming up and you don't have enough funds. Guess what is going to happen, right? You're going to bounce those checks, right? Or you're going to run out of the funds. So here we're trying to present this analogy about thinking what is happening with your emotional account with your children. Because many times, without being conscious, we are running some sort of a habit or the family dynamic at the moment, or the adversity that is happening. We are tired, talking about tendencies, or we're going through some issues with our partner or with our mom or work related. I'm stressed. And without being conscious, I am impacting the emotional account of my child, meaning the withdrawals. I might be like completely disconnected. Yeah, I hear you. Okay. just do it. It's fine. God, I'm so exhausted. Yeah, doesn't matter. Turn off the TV, get the snack, So we really give up on the limits. We give up on the connection because we are going through something. And here again, we are impacting that interaction. And I cannot tell you enough. Aminta and I, we are really big on social emotional development. We are so passionate that if we would just be a little bit more conscious on the way that we interact, we would be dealing with less frustration and anxiety because children are there ready to collaborate, but they want to feel heard, seen, loved. They want to feel accepted. They need to have that sense of belonging. And if we are not ready to interact and connect and to build that bonding, is not going to happen. So that's why we come up with the analogy of saying, are you making withdrawals or deposit? So think about it. I'm going to give you a few seconds to think, as simple as rolling your eyes. Oh my God. Or even all of these body gestures, without you telling nothing, the child is check. Yeah. You're making an emotional deposit to my experience with you. Here is my interaction. So later on, it will come back as, I never feel really connected with this person, or I never really felt heard because every time that I was trying to connect, there was no mom or dad or auntie or you name it, somebody who could be present. Especially nowadays, we don't know how to be present anymore. We are like this, right? Undivided attention. Oh, let me check. Yes, I know. It's okay. So here we're interacting with a third person, that is our cell phone, and making a priority. And you might think, so how is it related to the sleep pattern, right? But it has a lot to do because that's the emotional charge, that's called stress, that we are carrying through the whole night, and not only one night, but 2, 3, and some of us, we carry it for so long that it starts affecting our organs. And I cannot tell you enough, right? The whole aspect of somatic therapy that deals with the experiences of how this impacts each one of our organs. Every emotion that we are experiencing has to do with the function of our organs as well. So again, just make sure that you are creating a balance. Don't take all the funds from your children, make sure that you're making deposits. So what will be a deposit? A deposit will be, I am listening to you. I am here present. I'm going to be reading this bedtime book with you, even if you don't talk, just flipping the pages, giving you my love at the moment, the connection. That's a deposit. A deposit is, I am giving you transitions. I am creating a routine. I am paying attention on the environment. I am going to make sure that you feel safe here, that you are in an environment that you feel loved. So here we are. We can make enough deposit for children.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you my undivided attention. I'm not going to be checking my phone while I'm talking to you. I'm not going to be worrying about what is happening in the next hour because all of my attention is focused on you during this whole bedtime routine, right? So,
and I want to go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was about to say, because it's true. Be honest. I mean, I don't think that I'm a unique human, that I experienced it because I have talked with others as adults. But think about what happened when you are a little upset with somebody, right? Even could be with your mom, or something that you say and you didn't want to say, something that somebody tell you and it really hurt you and you were not assertive to say, I didn't like that. Whatever is the experience, we go to bed and what happens? And you change positions and your brain is, oh, I should have told her that. Why did she tell me that? I wonder, could it be this? Could it be that? Could it? And you run a whole agenda about what could it happen, and you're not resting. Finally, you fall asleep at some point, but it's not resting. Your body was tired to fall asleep. It's very different to sleep because your body got completely tired than to sleep because you were resting. So we want to make sure that when we're talking about these interactions, that you are creating the connection that children will go to sleep calmness. Like this little boy is laughing, right? I mean, that they don't have nothing to worry about it, right? And you will think, are they really taking into their own experience? And the answer is yes. They are picking up on everything. So that's why we want to make sure on how you are interacting with your children. The other important aspect is, and this is an adult scale, but a teacher from UCLA that I thought that was marvelous, to really monitor where we are on the way that we interact with each other. Could be for children or adults. And the thing is, and Aminta and I work with teenagers, and we have heard teens saying, well, all that I remember is my mom saying, well, take a shower, make your bed, put the trash away, make sure that you did, make sure that you don't do that. And even children, right? These are children. Okay, you need to eat. It's good for you. You're gonna be healthy. You need to eat your broccoli, and now it's time to go to bed. Let's go to rest. You need to rest. So everything is about monitoring and supervising your child, but it's not really facilitating any meaningful interactions. It's not about just even 15 minutes in which I don't need to lecture you. I don't need to tell you what to do. And even with babies, just holding them and singing a song with calmness, or just even with your child being not in a rush, as Aminta was mentioning, right? So again, we want to make sure that this is happening. And here again, we go with identifying temperament tendencies. As we already tap into these, we no longer want to label children. This is the feisty child. This is a slow worm to adapt. This is very challenging. This is shy. No, we want to call them tendencies. Well, it's not about we, it's about the research. But it is important that we all understand that tendencies is the right terminology to understand what is happening with the child's experience at the moment. Because if the child is not resting, if the child doesn't have the right nutrition or the right interactions, or he's not in the right environment, the tendencies of their behavior is going to be a challenging one, right? So we want to make sure about that. And let's talk about validating your child's feelings and needs. Aminta, do you want to extend a little bit into that, and then we share?
Yes, and also to touch on that, this does also go into not just young children, but it does lead into elementary school children and junior high and high school children. You just have to kind of gear it up a little bit. Of course, you're not going to go and read a bedtime story to your high schooler, right? But you can sit down and you can have a meaningful conversation about what their day was, and kind of still give them that validation of, I'm here for you. Even if they just want to sit and hold your hand for 5 minutes. I mean, it could be anything, right? Or even 2 minutes, because teenagers don't want to have anything to do with their parents. But at the same time, you also still want them to know that I'm going to give you your space, but I'm still going to be here. So it gives them that security that, okay, I'm going to go to bed. There might have been something that happened at school. There might have been something that happened on social media that ticked you off, or girlfriends, boyfriends, grades, whatever, all of that in high school. As parents, you want to also still be there during those routine times, because sometimes we think like they're old enough already. They can go to sleep on their own. We don't need to go over there now. But at any age, they still want that. I have a 26-year-old, and he came to me and he was like, we don't hug. And I said, what do you mean we don't hug? He goes, we just never hug. And then I thought about it, and it took me a few, months. And I was like, you know what? He's right. We don't hug anymore. He's 26. I wasn't thinking he needed a hug at 26, but he's coming to me and telling me, you know what? I need a hug. So these are the types of things, like even during bedtime and nighttime, like if they're still teenagers, you still want to peek in there and say, hey, you know what? I got you. I'm here. I want to sit with you for 5 minutes. And even if it's just to stare at your face, I don't know, whatever it is. So it's all across the board, from birth all the way up until 18. I mean, even into adulthood, sometimes, you see some parents or some adults who really are still needing that type of thing. And that might be because they were affected when they were younger, and certain things they didn't get when they were younger. So when we're talking about validating your child's feelings and needs, let's say you have a really challenging child who screams and is on the bed and they make every excuse to get up. I need to drink water. I need to go to the bathroom. I need another hug. I need another kiss. I want to go see daddy. You know, we're validating that, right? We're still validating. I know you want to get out of bed and you just don't feel like sleeping right now. It really looks like you don't feel like sleeping. So as much as I know you don't feel like sleeping, we're going to just rest in our bed. You don't want to close your eyes right now. You don't have to close your eyes, but I'm going to lay here with you and we're going to rest. So you're still validating the need that they still want to go get up and do things, but you're also setting the boundary that even though you want to do that, we're not going to be able to do that right now. Validating does not mean, okay, you want to go kiss daddy, go ahead and kiss him again. Oh, you want to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom again. Because now they're coming out and children will use that against parents, right? Like, oh, they did it for me the first time, so the next time it's going to be harder to reel them back in. So it's just validating what they need at the moment, and then reassuring them through being present with them that they are safe and secure and it is okay. We do have a lot of, where we put some phrases in there, you know, these are phrases that we have heard parents use all that. You need to go to bed right now. You need to go to bed. It's late. You need to go to bed. You need to go to bed. And if they come back and they say, well, no, I don't need to go to bed because I don't feel sleepy. And then if you ask them why, I don't feel sleepy. Okay. You just ask them a question and they're able to tell you something. So now you're like, okay, now here's another set of challenges. Like, okay, how am I going to get them to bed, right? But if we create a routine that is where I feel like a bedtime routine, or we feel like a bedtime routine sometimes can take 30 minutes to an hour for younger children, right? Because you want them to be part of the routine. You don't want that, you're not there to, when we talk about like monitoring super, did you put your pajamas on yet? Did you brush your teeth yet? Did you get your last drink of water? Did you go potty? Did you do all this? And you're not part of it. You're just kind of telling them what they need to do, but you're not part of it and they're not part of it. So I know Victoria put in something in there with the pictures of pajamas and things like that. It can be a fun game for children who are already like preschool or even elementary. Oh, let's go choose pajamas together. I'm going to go choose mine. You go choose yours. Let's see who chooses theirs the fastest. And then, you know, let's bring it to the living room and then let's, you know, just make it a fun, right? So that it is something that is, you're still spending time with them. They know it and it makes the routine smoother. So, okay, now we picked our pajamas. Oh, now it's time to brush our teeth. I'm going to go brush my teeth with you. Let me go get my toothbrush and then get your toothbrush. You put the toothpaste on my toothbrush, I'll put the toothpaste on your toothbrush. It's having them be part of it. And it's hard as parents because we're trying to just get them to do what they need to do. And we're trying to, again, rush through it. And we lose sight of what the purpose and what the meaning is. And it's like, when they get older, you're not going to have that much time to be doing that with them anymore, right? So every moment counts. Every little, you know, time that you have with them, they remember that. You might not remember it when they're infants and elementary, but they remember the feeling that I'm safe, I'm heard. My mom is always going to be there for me. My dad is going to be there for me. My grandma's the one who helped me, whoever it is, but they remember the feeling. But if you ask them, like, oh, well, or if you ask some even adults now, if we ask them, well, how was your childhood? Oh, my mom always told me what to do. She told me to go do this. She told me to do that. And so that's passed along to the next generation of kids without knowing it. And it's hard when you realize that. So these phrases of like, you need to go to bed. It's not good for you if you stay up late, or if you don't go to bed, the one that we always are like, oh, they're gonna, it's like they're bribing, right? If you don't go to bed, or threatening, if you don't go to bed, you're not going to get to watch TV tomorrow. Okay, well, going to bed doesn't have anything to do with watching TV tomorrow. So here we are giving them consequences for things that they, you know, that are not logical, that don't match what they're doing. So definitely we do not recommend bribing the child at all. But it's like, okay, it seems, but it's validating. It seems like you don't want to go to bed. So what can we do about that? and see if what they can come up with something. Oh, well, I want to go play for another 5 minutes. What else would you like to do? So it's like you're coming up with these things. And during this time, they're getting tired. That's why we're saying, like, it takes 30 minutes to an hour, but you have to be there 100% with them. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Selena.
Yes, well, and I want to make you aware, we are almost approaching the end, and we want to leave some time for questions as well. So hang in there. We are going to be wrapping it up soon and leaving time for questions. But I want to just add about what Aminta was saying, the importance of validating. We both were toddlers, preschool and kindergarten teachers, and always parents were coming to ask us, how do you do it with nap time? Sometimes 12 children sleeping at the same time. What is the secret? Because my child doesn't sleep. And let me tell you, the secret was the routine, consistency, and the limit. And of course, we had these children who, I don't want to go to sleep. And I would say, guess what? I have good news for you. You don't have to sleep. You're going to rest. So what would you like to have while you're resting? Do you want to hold your teddy bear, or would you like to hold this book? I don't want to sleep. That's fine. And guess what? This will be the child who would fall asleep before even other
Everybody
children.
else.
Why? Because you are removing the idea you have to sleep. So please remove that phrase, you have to rest, you have to sleep. It's not about you have to. The body has more wisdom than you, our own body. But validating their needs and feelings is not to agree with their thing. So validating means to say, exactly like Amita was saying, if the child said, I don't want to go to sleep. Oh, yeah, it's not fun to go to sleep, huh? It doesn't feel, you have a lot of things to do. You still want to play with your blocks, with your cars. Of course, you don't want to go to sleep, but we can do something. What would you like to do in the morning? Would you like to go and play with your cards first or with your blocks? Should we put them on top of your counter or under your bed? So you are redirecting the preoccupation per se, because the children sometimes is like, what is going to happen with my toys? If I go to sleep, it's going to go away. Same thing with potty training. That's why sometimes they have incidents, because they are more worried about, if I go to pee, somebody's going to take over my things. So I'd rather pee here and not lose my toys, right? Same thing with sleeping patterns. They think that if they go to sleep, they will definitely, all of the things will be gone. So given and reassure that thing of validate, you know what, where would you like to put your cards, your this? And we will take a look into those questions that are coming up. So again, and always separate the person from the behavior. One thing is to communicate with the behavior, and another thing to communicate with the child. It's not the same if I tell you, like, let's say that I'm talking to Aminta and I say, Aminta, you are so disrespectful. Victoria, you are so disorganized. I am already labeling them, and my communication is direct to the person, rather than, Aminta, when you talk to me like that, I don't feel respected. Victoria, when you leave things all over the place, it's really disorganized and I get a little stressed. What we can do about it? I'm not judging you. I'm talking to the behavior. I still love you, but I don't approve the behavior. And we need to set up very clear limits, especially when it's around bedtime, right? And again, so here is the phrases that Aminta was saying, instead of saying, you need to go to bed, let's not even go there. You can say, it's going to be rest time. What would you like to have before you go to rest? You have your rest. Would you like to take this, take that, and make sure that you have the right choices? Because I have heard parents, would you like to, to take your teddy bear or listen, or I don't know, something, and the child might say, the teddy bear. No, you already got the teddy bear, take this, right? So we don't want to go into that place of confusing the child. Make sure that you will go along with this. So here we are almost done. We just want to talking about what Victoria was saying, right? Or I don't know, somebody was sharing with us with the boards. But here it is, the impact of the routine, wrapping it up, emotional, physical, or biological. And hope that you are taking something meaningful with you. But here we are, as Aminta was saying, for some children might be 30 minutes before, for others might be only 15, 20, or maybe an hour. Pay attention to your child's behavior, to the child's temperament tendencies to be. Some children will like to have books to read, other children will not even want to have a book. They might only be okay with the music. Remember the kinesthetic experience, holding an item. Others may want to smell something. Others may want to see something moving, not screen time, right? But an object that is cool to watch. And finally, to identify. And hugs, like Aminta was saying, they're so important. They are related to the level of oxytocin in our brain and our body. So we may want to bring more of that, right? And creating the right environments. Some children may like to have a dim light, a very light light, others the whole light, and it's okay. Do the transition, right? Until the child feels safe, that is not about the light, but it's about him. So don't say, the light cannot be on, off or on or whatever it is. Just gradually, any of the strategies to be mindful about these. And remember how powerful, and I don't know if Miriam still is here with us, how powerful it could be to use the board. Do you want to add anything, Aminta, on that, or should I move?
No, I think you covered.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So here we are. We want to wrap it up by saying support your child. Family, right? And I like how this in a family, love spells T-I-M-E, time. And interesting enough, the principles of our program, the DOT principles, is based on the DOT for D for dedication, observation, and thoughtfulness. And the reason why we think about this, and it doesn't matter about parent, you can be a DOT friend, a DOT wife, a DOT husband, DOT leader, is because when you are trying to implement anything, you need to dedicate time. If you really want to change your child's sleep patterns, there's no way by magic is going to happen just because you're thinking or you're saying it. You need to dedicate time to make things happen. You need to observe. And I hope that we are taking in consideration the elements that we were mentioned. You need to observe your child's temperament tendencies, learning styles, paying attention to your emotional account, observe the messages of their behavior. Why? Because by observing and dedicating time, you will be able to implement a plan. And we really believe in thoughtfulness, being mindful. The vehicle of any strategy is when we put love into that, when we put time into that. So of course, the recommendation is let's put a plan of action, but the realistic plan, Aminta, right? Because we're talking
Right.
about that. What would you say about this realistic plan? Share with them.
So if it was a realistic plan, if you're thinking, okay, bedtime's at 8 o'clock, right? And then you're scrambling, trying to get them to bed at 8 o'clock because you're on a time frame. Realistically, you would want to start the process an hour prior. So that looks like 7 o'clock, right? 7 o'clock, 7:15 at the most, depending on, it's really time management on how long they take a shower. What do you want to do for that day? Are they going to go and play this game with you, define the pajamas, brushing their teeth, reading the book? All of those components need to be thought out prior. Because if you're saying, oh, I have a plan, I'm going to have them stop at playing at 7:30. Well, 7:30, realistically, brushing your teeth, sitting in bed with them, going to the bathroom, going to see how cramped that is at the time frame. It's not enough time, right? If those are all the things that you're looking at before they go to bed, 30 minutes really is not enough time. Between bath time, unless you're rushing it, and then there's no quality time. But the goal is we want to give the quality time and we want them to feel rested and relaxed before they go to bed. So that's why I always go back to, or we always go back to like an hour, like, and the reminders, okay, it's almost rest time. It's at 8 o'clock. Show them the visual of the clock, set a timer for auditory learners. Like, okay, when the timer goes off, we need to clean up and we're going to go on to the next step. So it's realistic per family, right? Because there's no one specific recipe per, like, well, we can give you, say, this is going to work for all children. No, it's not. It's not going to work for all children because every child is different and it's unique, and you have to develop a plan that works for your child, individual child. So that's when so that's the realistic part of it.
and to be accountable, right? I think I'm covering with my head the word because we just learned when Victoria says, okay, Selena, share the screen, and here is the new feature that I am hearing the screen. So it's funny to see me, a little me covering this, but it is fun too. So, but it's be accountable to make a difference, right? And that's the thing, how we can be accountable. And that's what we're saying, by being a that parent, dedicate, observe, and be thoughtful about it. And with that, we want to just close by saying, thank you so much for being with us here today. I'm going to stop sharing the screen to go back to you.
We have
And I
some
want to just
I'm-
remind you about the resources. I mean, this is one of the books, but this one is called The Rabbit Who Didn't Want to Go to Sleep. And again, we can send the PowerPoint to Victoria if you want to keep it. But I will say, if you Google, it is amazing what Mr. Google has available for us in terms of all the books. What is the other one? I mean, the Moonlight,
Good Night Moon.
Good
That's
Night
always
Moon,
a,
I
yeah, that's
remember,
always a
for
favorite.
toddlers. Or even, you know what, even I love these visiting feelings as well. So we can provide you with that. But the point is to be there with the resources as well. I want to honor, I think, Miriam, you were telling us that you have children with autism. And thank you for sharing that you have been using the visual approach. I guess you were sharing that. And it's true, the visual is so important for children with autism because they have a difficult time with the auditory process. So by having the kinesthetic or the visual together makes more sense to them. So thank you for sharing, Miriam.
And then you have one more, Margaret, and then she says, what do you suggest to a parent with a child with autism who is not able to understand the explanation or even visuals in order to go to bed?
Okay, well, we are, I will say, fortunate that we work with a large population of children with autism and in collaboration with occupational therapists. And we have seen that what it works is thinking about the emotional aspect is validating children, despite the fact that they might have autism or not, because validating means I am not against you. I am here to be with you. So despite the fact that you might think that he's understanding or not, when we create the habit of sending the same message, that the child, especially with autism, the repetition makes a difference. So try to use the same words so he gets familiar with that, and to says, oh, if he has a difficult time, to just says, I know, not fun to go to sleep, huh? And try to be really vivid with your facial expression, because we want to make him aware that it's not fun, or try to observe how your child express his feelings. Some of them might go like, like this, right? Or some of them, when they have autism, or they might completely withdraw. So if you already have identified that that's the way that they express the feelings, I will recommend to go, I know, no. Or yes, I know. Why? Because we are mimicking and trying to tell them, I do understand what you're going through right now. And then over and over to say, hold this. We're gonna do in 5 minutes. So the thing it is, Margot, I think it was, the way that you're gonna make the difference is by the consistency and the frequency on how are you presenting to them. And we have seen it. We have seen children with very severe autism, and I'm not gonna lie to you to say that it works 100%. But when we think about collaboration, we have reflect with parents about where do you prefer to be at, 5% of collaboration or 80% of collaboration, and sometimes 90. So let's be realistic too, that sometimes, because behaviors are unpredictable with children with autism, we cannot say 100% will work at all times. But to me, to know that it can work up to 90%, it is good news. But it will not work if we don't create consistency and frequency. That's why the dedication, it matters here, because they need their routine. They need to have the same things in order. Does that make sense? I don't know if that answered to you, Margot.
You know,
Okay.
I have I'm a parent. I also have kids that are on the autism spectrum. One was a great sleeper. The other was not a great sleeper. And some of the things that we did, in addition to, trying to establish a good sleep routine, was we tried to work on getting physical exercise during the day. Bike riding, going to the park, swinging, that rhythmic, repetitive movement, I think helped a lot. And, those were the things that I think worked the best for my kids when they were younger.
Thank you for sharing. Indeed, and remember, when Aminta and I were mentioning about individualizing the needs of your child, here is to customize the plan. Some children need to put away that energy. So if you're trying to send them to bed without working the proprioceptive system, all of the joints, is a lot of information. So there's something that is called heavy work or sensory diets. It fluctuates, but some children will benefit from pushing, pulling, all these heavy works that if you Google it like that, heavy work or sensory diets, it will give you a lot of strategies on how you can bring that to your child at the moment so they can give the information to their muscles, to the sensory needs at the moment, because it's true, they build up a lot sometimes, and we need to just decrease that need of the movement or the anxiety that is at the moment. So I'm glad that you shared that it does work, the biking, or even having a trampoline, having a therapy ball, having something where they can, again, create this, giving information to the joints. There's also called the joint compressions or the brushing technique. And this is a good opportunity to talk to one of the occupational therapists that are available in the community or through the school district, and to find out about more ways to support your child's sensory needs.
Yeah, thank you. Great tips. So at this time, I'd just like to ask if there are any more questions. You can type it in the chat, or you can raise your hand, or use the mic. I also want to let everyone watching know that we will put the recording of this session up on our YouTube page probably tomorrow. So if you want to go back and look at it again or share it with someone, you can. And I just want to say thank you to our two presenters, Selena and Aminta.
Thank you so much for having us.
Our pleasure. Thank you for those hanging in there.
Information. And I hope we all get good sleep in the next.
Thank you, Miriam, for your comments. I'm glad that it was helpful and appreciated. And I know sometimes the time is difficult, so it's a great thing, Victoria, that you will have it available for those who cannot make it at this time.
Yeah, well, thank you both. Thank you for
talking about hugs. We're sending you a hug so we can all go to sleep nice and smooth.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you again, Victoria. Thank you. Very appreciated. Thank you very much. Bye.